may I request Mr. Tapan Singhel, Managing Director and CEO of Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, who is also our Chairman of the National Committee of Insurance and Pension. Sir, may we request you to address on how the insurance industry is evolving and why it is more relevant in current time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Avishakta, and it's a pleasure listening to Suchita in terms of how she looks at health insurance. So, very good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure, honor being here, talking to all of you. Now, if I look at the topic, it says that how the industry is evolving and why it is relevant, in current times. So let's look at the relevance part first and foremost. So if any industry has to be relevant, what are the parameters that we look for in terms of an industry? The first parameter we look for is that does it contribute to 1, society, 2, to the government, 3, to nation building, 4th, to employment, 5th, does it stand by when things go wrong for people? Does it overall create an environment in which things thrive? And what else can you think of for any industry to be relevant? So let's look at some parameters to understand on the relevance part of it. Now, are we aware that in government, central government, for the securities which is which gets invested, about 53 lakh crores which gets invested, out of which the insurance industry single-handedly puts in 20 lakh crores. So imagine just one industry contributes 20 lakh crore for the government in terms of what they can use for infrastructure or investment to look at nation building. 20 lakh crore, the industry percent. Second, now let's look at the second point. If we look at in terms of employment generation, so we see a lot of newspaper articles, if some factory opens up and employment about 4,000-5,000 people get generated, it's a big news. The insurance industry put together, provides employment to at least 40 lakh people on a direct basis. So it's one of the biggest employment generator for the country which would be there. So from contributing nation building to employment generation. Third, if you look at equity market itself, which in a way is a proxy for capital for a lot of companies, the industry provides 8.2 lakh crore to the equity market, which means that you're talking about 7% of the equity market is by insurance industry. So when you have an industry which contributes close to 30-35% for the government infrastructure money, it contributes to a huge amount of employment generation. It contributes to equity market at 7%, which is 8.2 lakh crore in a way, which is capital to quite a few companies because it's a source of capital for quite a few companies. So we have never seen the insurance industry like this in terms of relevance in building the country, in building the private infrastructure, in building or generating employment for a country like India. We have always seen it as a claim payer. We have always seen it as being there. But it plays a very, very powerful role. Now let's look at the claim payment part of it. And let's look at the insurances which the industry has done. About 5.5 crore farmers have been covered just for crop insurance. And 25,000 crore got paid to farmers from a crop insurance perspective. Or if you look at the population large, 40 crore Indians have been covered by National Health Scheme, which are Indians which are below poverty line. What does it mean? If you understand, if you're going to cover 40 crore Indians and have a 5 lakh sum insured on a floater basis across, we are talking of creation of huge health infrastructure in tier 2, tier 3. In fact, after this announcement, we saw a lot of big corporate hospitals start talking about setting up in terms of infrastructure, hospitals, and the movements are happening. It also means it leads to life expectancy of Indians moving up by 5 to 7% in terms of their total life expectancy. If you look at the floods, the natural catastrophe, every 3-4 years we see natural catastrophe happening. If you look at it very carefully and we read it in the newspaper, let's say if a flood happens, we talk of economic loss of let's say 20,000 crores. Insured loss would be about 4,000 odd crore. Okay, but 4,000 crore has been paid by the insurance company. And if you look at the government, entire money spent on it would be very small compared to the amount of insurance money which comes into play, redeploy people and to ensure they get back from where they have been. But still the gap is huge. So as much as we can think about the insurance industry and the amount of money that they contribute to nation building or to employment generation or to the variety of employment generation, again, that again is something which again surprises a lot of people and tell them. The insurance industry employs not only IT people, which no, in terms of IT engineers, pharma people, agriculturists, veterinary doctors, surgeons, nurses, MBAs, experts of nuclear plants. No, you name it. Any kind of profession that you can think of. You'll be surprised to know that the insurance industry employs them all. You know? It's an amazing industry to be in. So the relevance of insurance industry can never be questioned in terms of why it is relevant. Now, has it really achieved all that has to be achieved? The answer is no. No. Because if I look at, we're still talking of, and we heard Suchita speak about the missing middle, no, which is a Niti Aayog report which has come out in terms of. So every Indian is still not covered from a health insurance perspective. But we see state governments making effort in that, like Jammu and Kashmir state, or the Kerala state, where they talk of covering every citizen of their state. So the progress is made. Every citizen of India should be covered by a good health insurance or a health cover by the state or by the government. It's a fundamental basic right of a citizen of the country. And we see the government making steps in the direction, which is a very, very positive step. So the relevance of insurance becomes more stronger because if the ambition is to have every citizen of India a good health cover, which actually would lead to better health infrastructure, which actually would lead to the life expectancy of India is moving up, which actually would lead to India moving towards the developed country status, because that is a kind of fundamental right which has to be there. That still has to be done. I spoke about the losses which happen when floods happen or natural catastrophes strike. I spoke of the economic loss, 20,000 crores, and we insured loss for 3,000-4,000 crores. Huge gap, about 16,000-17,000 crores in any kind of event is a gap which is there, and which actually would mean that it is the common person who suffers. Parametric solutions is coming up. We saw the Nagaland government provide parametric solutions for the entire citizens of the state. Now, solution for the insurance industry is there, which provides protection when such things happen for every citizen of that state or for the country. The time has come that when not one government, but the entire state governments all across should be looking at the solutions. As a country, we should be so protected that if economic losses happen for 20,000 crores, the insured loss is also equally the same. So no common person or poor person suddenly goes below poverty line just because of a cat event. And we are aware that from health claims, 4% of Indian population goes below poverty line. From economic losses, about 3-4% of the Indian population goes below poverty line. Just one incident pushes people to below poverty line. It's not a small number we're talking about. Is the industry relevant? Yes, it has solutions, and working with the government to see how does it come towards to solve the problems and worries of it. The other worry, if we look at demographic dividend we talk about, is the employment generation. Huge amount of youth, very good for a country which the average age is in the 20s. But if you don't provide employment to them, that can lead to huge kind of problems coming through, social problems, economic problems coming through. The insurance industry single-handedly has the competence to double, triple the employment it generates over time. Along with economic growth of the country, the need for insurance moving up, currently underpenetrated, and as time progresses, the potential to grow that is more. It actually means that the employment generation in the insurance industry can be at a level which people have not yet thought about through. That is where the relevance in the future in terms of the industry standing up for it and see how they can expand, how they create employment generation is something which is very, very relevant. Now, if I look at the evolution of the industry, and now I've been there for 30 years in this industry, has been very, very interesting. I think let me take it a bit before I started working in the industry. In our own country, in the 1970s or 60s, if you look at insurance companies, general insurance in India, there were over 100 insurance companies in India. In 1972, when we had the mergers and we had 4 insurance companies created, that's the National, New India, Oriental, and United India, under the umbrella of GIC, which was there. This 107 odd companies got merged to 4. Today, if I look, we are still about 30 odd insurance companies put together. With the government opening up the FDI at 74, the expectation is that if in 70s we had 100 insurance companies in India itself, and if I look at a small country like Singapore, which have close to 600-700 insurance companies, if I look at a country like UK, which have close to over 1,000 insurance companies, or if I look at US, over 2,000 insurance companies, why should India not have about 1,000 insurance companies in the times to come? Now, imagine 1,000 insurance companies that come to India. We are talking of increase of the penetration of insurance. We are talking of increase of employment generation, which will be happening. We are talking of universal health cover for Indians. We're talking of every citizen getting covered for natural catastrophe loss. We're talking of amazing kind of coverages which should be available. So this evolution is happening, and this is going to happen in our own times in terms of the next 5-10 years, which I'll be seeing huge amount of development happening in terms of the industry creation, which should be going forward. If I look at let me take you more back, let's say 16th century. The only line of business the insurance industry did then was marine. That was 100% of the business. If I look at marine contribution to insurance industry today, it's less than close to 2% or so for the entire industry. Something which is 100% is close to 2%. Then became fire insurance, which had a major stake in the insurance portfolio. Today, if you look at fire insurance, it comes to close to about 10% or so. Then automobile, which now today comes down to close to 35-40%. Over time, the evolution of products in terms of their portfolio mix has evolved, but that took a lot of time. So if I look at the fire policy today, that must have got created about 70, 80 or 100 years back. I did not seen the policy wording change. If I look at the motor policies, it must have got created comfortably 70, 80, 100 years back. Still, the base policy wordings is still the same. There's not much of a change on that. So though we have seen some products move and their LOB mix change, but fundamentally in terms of the basic changes happening in those products has been limited. At the same time, if I look at the way plethora of new products have come through and the way the risks have evolved is again something which is amazing. Cyber risks have become the biggest risk. In any kind of risk barometer you look at, if you look at the Allianz risk barometer also, it's the highest and the topmost should be cyber, which should not have been there, let's say 10, 15 years back at that kind of predominance is there. But in just this 2-3 years time, it has become the highest. Not only for a company perspective, for individuals perspective also, for each one of us, cyber risk has become something which is very, very critical for us to be having it. In fact, as a company, Bajaj Allianz, we launched the first retail cyber insurance product in India for the citizens of the country. Now that has become very, very relevant, which was not so. Something simple like this, we did a study to see that ownership of pet has really shot up, and you have pet insurance now, which would be taking care of hospitalization of dogs, and which again was something that got launched, which is there. If you look at something as simple, as a health product now, with the regulator allowing the ecosystem or wellness as part of it, now you have OPT covers, which would actually take care of it. In fact, ensure that you can get paid, reimbursed for OPD, which would be there, or for diagnostics, or for even an RT-PCR test, which would be there. Or if you look at something like a home insurance, which earlier used to only take place for the value of construction, now you have agreed value home insurance coming through. So if I look at not only the simple things like the line of business which is there, but the evolution happening in terms of product, in terms of the benefits, and the sachet-based products now, which is limited, let's say, for a ride, or we are talking of products which cost you 1 rupee, or we're talking of products which cost you 5 rupees or 10 rupees, or the hyperscale at with something like a mobile insurance, which happens now. One of my partners, they insure about 2 lakh mobile in a day or 3 lakh mobile in a day. The claim may happen in any remote part of the country, it gets paid in 20 minutes of the claim happening. All this was unimaginable just about 10, 15 years back. Most of you will be surprised to know, just 20 years back, a motor claim would take 3 to 4 months to get settled. And you'd actually have to bring salvage to the office of the insurance company for it to be ticked, and then the money would get paid. And still customers very happy. 3 months, if they got their claim, they're very happy, and they'd actually be taking the bumper and headlight to the insurance company to deposit it in the insurance companies. Sounds very funny, but this is just 20 years back. And today, when you're talking of motor claim getting settled within 20 minutes of the accident at the spot, immediately when people take pictures, click upload, and it gets settled on the spot. I think the evolution from an industry perspective and the way things are moving at a hyper speed is something which is very exciting. In fact, going fast forward, if I just say 5 years from now, I'd be very surprised if retail claims in the industry takes more than 30 minutes from the time of incident to get paid. I'll be surprised to see if commercial claims, even big losses, like say 500 crores, 600 crores, take more than, let's say, for on-account payment, more than 2 or 3 days to get paid. I think things like this, which earlier used to take a couple of years for commercial claims to get paid, 4 or 5 months for simple claims to get paid for retail, to an era in which you're talking of days and minutes in which these claims get paid, has been an evolution which is happening at a very hyper speed. The more and more digitalization happens, the more artificial intelligence, machine learning comes to play, the more data lake comes into play. I think the more innovation happening at this speed is going to ensure that the insurance industry in just 25 years' time would be a completely different phase together. Now, that is an evolution which is going to happen. The other evolution which is happening is the government looking at insurance on a very, very clear basis in terms of how it can benefit the citizens of the country at a large scale is a very interesting evolution happening. I've always believed that the insurance industry and the government in a country where they work together make a huge impact to society and make a huge difference to the way the risks are taken care of, the way society development happens, the way infrastructure gets created, the way employment gets generated. And I see this change happening in the Indian market also, which to me is a big phenomena happening. And we should keep a small, not a small, but a big watch on this. In 5-7 years, actually it'll make a huge difference to the country and to the people which is there. So I can go on and on this. This is my favorite subject, but I thought I'll take the broad subjects and cover it there. Happy to see you, Mr. Mishra, there. Over to you, Avishekta. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you, Mr. Singhel, for discussing about how the insurance sector has evolved over the years and how it is becoming more relevant with its new products and services offered. With this, we will not waste any more time. We have got our chief guest, Mr. Saurabh Mishra, Joint Secretary, Insurance, Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance, Government of India.
Thank you very much, Abhishekta. Good luck to CII. Thanks, Mr. Singhel. I was keenly listening into you and an industry veteran like you talking about with eloquence and content is a music to my ears.